Welcome to English Practice Stories.
Hi, my dear friends, how are you? Let's start the story. So basically, my husband is from China, turned SG citizen, and I'm a Singaporean. We met and worked together and got married after less than a year of dating. We knew each other for a couple of years while working together. My husband left his hometown almost 20 years ago to come to Singapore to study and work alone. So when we got together, he was living in a rented room alone, and we basically just called his mother once a week or so. We got married during the COVID period, so we only had an intimate ceremony with about 10 people, and I didn't get to see my mother-in-law or any of his side of the family. Soon after, I got pregnant with our first child, and the COVID-19 restrictions eased up, so he talked about flying his mom over to Singapore with no return date because he was intending to apply for a LTVP for her on the grounds that she's here to take care of her grandson, and he did as planned. That was in the year 2021. At first, I was really excited to meet my mother-in-law. I mean, it's just like having another mother, and she seemed really friendly over the video calls. But when she came one day after my child was born, she was supposed to take care of my confinement, and she really didn't do a good job at all. On the first day when she came, my mom, who has a full-time job, guided her on what she could cook for my confinement, and she even bought some fresh meat and kept it in the freezer and told both my mother-in-law and my husband. Turns out, they both said they didn't hear it, and for dinner that night, which was the first meal that she was supposed to cook for me, my husband just went down to buy takeaway food back. For Chinese, during confinement, we need to drink hot Longan red date tea, and I told my husband and my mother-in-law, well, she cooks it every day, but she just leaves it in a regular Tupperware container that doesn't keep warm, and every time I wanted to drink, I had to add some hot water myself. I spoke to my husband about it. I even told him that before my child was born, my mom specifically went to buy a new thermal flask for me for that purpose, and he knew it all along. Well, instead of correcting his mom, he went against me and said, "Why bother since I always don't finish the drink?" His mom only cooks the food that my husband likes to eat, which is understandable, but the most I got from her was just a bowl of soup, and sometimes I kept the leftover for the next meal, along with all the other dishes she cooked for her son. And when I told my husband about this, he said he would speak to his mom, and he even went online to search for a few menus and asked me to choose what I wanted to eat. I did, but the food never changed. When I asked him why, he said, "Aya, I see the menu. Most of the food you also don't like to eat, Ma," and I'm like, "But weren't you the one who gave me the choice in the first place? And didn't I already choose the menu?" But that's not all. I can take care of myself. The worst nightmare is when my mother-in-law tries to poke her nose into my business and how I take care of my baby. Whenever it was time to feed the baby, she would always ask me if I was going to breastfeed or formula feed. It came to a point where I was really stressed. I closed the door and shifted all my breastfeeding equipment, baby formula, and milk bottle into my room so I could get everything done inside. Even so, when I carry the baby out to her to play, she will still question things like why she heard the baby crying, etc. Do babies cry what? And when I swaddle my baby, she always removes the swaddle and wraps him loosely for his sleep, saying that the baby doesn't like to be swaddled. I told her it's not safe to have the blanket loosely wrapped around him, and also that swaddling will make the baby feel safe and not keep getting jump scares. She never listened, and one day, my son started vomiting a lot of milk after each feed. We brought him in to the doctors, and the PD asked if anyone was sick at home, and we said no. The next thing he asked was if the baby is usually swaddled, and I said not really. So he said it could be that the baby's free hands were touching everything and he just put it in his mouth, causing germs and eventually leading to stomach flu. My boy was just 2 months old. I also paid for my own postnatal massage, and when the lady came, my mother-in-law asked to carry the baby outside because she said the smell was too strong and not good for the baby. Hello? These people even help to massage newborns as part of the routine, for goodness sake. Anyway, I didn't want to argue with her in front of an outsider, so I let her take my son out of the room. To my extreme shock, when I went out, I saw my son sleeping, wrapped in a thick blanket, with a knitted sweater on top of him, windows closed, blinds turned down, no fan, no air conditioner. I immediately told my husband to bring him back to me, and I asked why he didn't stop his mom. The baby could easily get overheated, and he just told me that his mom just switched off the fan. Excuse me, it's so freaking hot in Singapore. Ever since then, I canceled my following sessions because I really couldn't stand her taking care of my son that way. So anyway, she eventually went back after 4 months of hell, and we were back to our normal lives. My husband was then offered a job in Japan, and he decided to take it up. So we moved to Japan with our then 8-month-old son, and I got pregnant soon after. And my husband suggested that I let his mom come take care of me, but I immediately refused. Who knows how much distress she was going to cause me. When my second son was born and hit 3 months old, we planned a trip back to China and stayed there for 2 weeks. She offered to take care of him while we brought our older son out to play. While we were out, I would ask her from time to time, "How's the baby?" And she would always say he's fine. Then one day, I found out that she left the baby alone at home twice on the same day. Once to go down to collect a parcel, and another time to go to the rooftop to hang the bedsheets. When I told my husband about it, he said, but the baby was sleeping, Ma. That got me so furious. I told him you never let a baby out of your sight. Not at all. She later followed us back to Japan to stay for 3 months. I know. And again, I started to meddle with small things like what I wear for my kids outdoors or whether to use the air conditioner or fan. She's always saying the kids are cold. Before I agreed to let her come, I told my husband that I had 2 conditions. 1. Not to speak their native language in front of my son as much as possible, because my son seems to be having trouble speaking the many languages that he is hearing. 2. Follow my way to care for the kids. He readily agreed, but never fulfilled them. I have to send my older son to school every day, and my younger son would be with my mother-in-law. At home, each time he naps, he would only nap for 20 minutes max under her care. He also refused to drink milk when she tried to feed him. And after some time, I noticed that when she makes the milk, it's always half hot water, half room temperature. And sometimes, when he refused to drink, she would keep the milk warm by placing it in a bowl of hot water, but when she picked up the bottle to feed him again, she never tested the temperature of the milk and just fed him directly. I think that kind of traumatized my son, and I told her to stop feeding him and that I would take care of him myself. She never believed me when I told him the baby needed to sleep or wanted to sleep. Until I got really fed up, I always patted him to sleep on my own. So basically, her being here didn't help, but it caused me even more unhappiness, and my husband doesn't see it. He's always siding with her. When I try to talk to him about it, he feels that I am prejudiced against his mom. I even tried to speak to her, and she felt like she was already following my way. But hell no, man. Anyway, fast forward to today. We have been planning a trip back to Singapore since a few months ago, but the trip keeps getting postponed because of my husband's workload. For the 2 years since we have been in Japan, it has always been like that. I always had to accommodate his work schedule to go back, and it was always like flying off next week, and the air tickets were only bought a week before. As a result of this, I often have to make last-minute plans to meet up with my friends or to go for my medical appointment. I have a medical review for a minor op that I did for a tumor behind my ear. I needed to keep going back to check if the tumor came back. And I was fine with that. But this time around, for the past few weeks, I kept asking him if the dates were confirmed, and he's like, "Yeah, confirmed." Today, when I finally told him to buy the air tickets, he sprung a surprise on me, telling me that he intends to go back to China on one of the weekends that we are back in Singapore. I was really pissed off because, 1, we were only going to be back for 2 weeks. 2, I only have 1 full weekend with my family because the second weekend we will be flying back, and my family works on weekdays. 3, he freaking didn't mention any of this plan for the last few weeks until I told him to buy the air tickets back to Singapore. When I told him he should have discussed with me, he got pissed off at me as though it's my fault for being unreasonable to make such a request. That aside, I'm also kind of dreading to live with my mother-in-law, especially since she just went back to China after living with US for 4 months. I wish for happiness in your family. Thank you for listening to this story. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon to meet us again and hear more stories like this. Bye for now.
If you like our story, subscribe English Practice Stories channel and click the bell icon.